Toxic kindness. Find out before it's too late. What if the people who wound you most deeply are not the ones who speak harsh words, but the ones who smile as they hand you comfort? What if the harm does not come through open conflict, but through gestures that appear noble, almost saintly, until you realize too late that they carry with them a hidden weight? This is the paradox of toxic kindness. It is not the cruelty you fear, but the sweetness that disarms you. Cruelty makes you stand tall, prepare your defenses, sharpen your resolve. But kindness, when poisoned, makes you step down, open your gates, and invite the intruder in. That is why it is so lethal. It reaches you not through battle, but through surrender. Imagine standing in a crowded room. You see the one who insults you, and you are ready to defend yourself. But the one who offers you a seat, a drink, a reassuring word, you accept without suspicion. Over time, that same figure becomes a shadow in your decisions, making you second-guess your own strength. It is not by accident. Toxic kindness works slowly, like a subtle venom spreading through the veins. You do not notice the first drop, nor the second, nor the third. Only when your body grows heavy do you realize something foreign has taken root inside you, and by then, much of your will has already been consumed. The greatest danger is not in the act itself, but in your silence before it. You tell yourself, they are only trying to help. You excuse the unease in your chest, the quiet voice that whispers, this is not right. Because who wants to question a gift? Who wants to confront a smile? To do so feels cruel, ungrateful, selfish. And that is precisely how toxic kindness holds its power. It convinces you that rejecting it would make you the villain. You become trapped, not by their hands, but by your own conscience, reshaped and manipulated. The Stoics knew this danger well. Marcus Aurelius warned himself against being lulled by favors that enslave. He wrote that true help comes without chains, while false generosity shackles you even as it pretends to serve. Seneca went further, reminding us that the purest gift is the one that dies at the moment it is given, carrying no memory, no debt, no expectation. But those who use kindness as a mask never allow their gifts to die. They let them linger, pressing on your mind like a shadow, until you feel you must return something greater than you received. Epictetus, stern and unwavering, taught that freedom is lost the moment you allow another's actions to command your choices. Toxic kindness is the most efficient path to that loss because you willfully bow your head without even knowing you are kneeling. Picture a chain so finely made it looks like jewelry. You wear it proudly at first, admiring the shine, telling yourself it is a symbol of connection. Yet with each passing day, the weight becomes more noticeable. You tug at it, and it does not break. You try to remove it, but find it has no clasp. It was not jewelry after all, it was a collar. This is what happens when you fail to see toxic kindness for what it is. You walk proudly in chains, believing you are adorned. Only when your neck begins to ache do you finally recognize you were never free. You might ask yourself why this matters so much. After all, what is wrong with accepting help, with leaning on others, with enjoying the comfort of being cared for? The truth is, there is nothing wrong with kindness. What corrupts it is the hidden motive behind it. Real kindness is liberating. It lifts your burdens and expects nothing more. Toxic kindness is binding. It pretends to carry your load while secretly tying ropes around your arms. The moment you attempt to move in a direction they do not approve of, you feel the resistance, the pull, the guilt that keeps you anchored to their will. And so the urgency is not in rejecting kindness, but in learning to discern its true nature. Ask yourself, does this act make me freer or more dependent? Do I feel gratitude or do I feel guilt? Does the gift die the moment it is given, or does it live on, haunting my decisions long after? These are not idle questions. They are the dividing line between liberation and manipulation, between a life lived with clarity and one quietly stolen through disguised control. The danger is not out there in the world of enemies who strike openly. It is within the familiar circle of smiles and gentle words, where your defenses are low and your vigilance is asleep. That is why you must awaken now. To see through the illusion is the first act of reclaiming your sovereignty. If you wait too long, the trap will close, and the cost will not just be your freedom but your very sense of self. The hidden nature of toxic kindness. Toxic kindness does not arrive like a storm. It does not shake the ground beneath your feet or break into your life with force. It moves like a soft mist, filling the air without drawing attention, settling slowly until you realize the air you breathe is no longer clean. This is why it is so difficult to recognize. You expect manipulation to look sharp, cold, aggressive. Instead, it wears the face of warmth, compassion, and generosity. What could be more dangerous than poison hidden in honey? The essence of toxic kindness is not in what is given, but in what is silently demanded. At first, you feel uplifted. You feel chosen, valued, even special. But underneath the gesture lies a subtle design. You are being drawn into a pattern of emotional debt. Gratitude, once natural and pure, becomes a weapon turned against you. You are reminded of what has been done for you. You are made to feel that refusing a request, setting a limit, or even disagreeing would be betrayal. What began as a gift slowly transforms into a chain. The most insidious part of this pattern is that it cloaks itself in virtue. You tell yourself you are being loyal, respectful, considerate. In reality, you are being bound. This is why so many remain blind to the trap. They confuse obedience with gratitude, surrender with loyalty. When you finally notice, it is not because they ask for something openly, but because you begin to feel an invisible hand guiding your choices, bending your will toward paths you did not choose. The Stoics warned against such invisible chains. Marcus Aurelius wrote about the importance of acting from the clarity of one's own reason rather than being swayed by the debts and expectations of others. Seneca explained that gifts that carry obligation are not gifts at all. They are transactions dressed in silk. Epictetus urged his students to distinguish between what lies within their control and what lies outside of it. Toxic kindness thrives in that confusion, making you believe someone else's approval is part of your duty, when in truth it is not. Consider how it unfolds in daily life. A friend insists on helping you with something you could have managed on your own. You accept, grateful for the relief. Later, when you decide differently from what they expected, they remind you of what they did for you. Not directly, but through tone, through silence, through disappointment that weighs heavier than any spoken demand. Or a family member who always provides, but in return expects loyalty that suffocates your individuality. The gestures look noble on the surface, but beneath them lies a subtle claim of ownership over your life. This is not about villainizing kindness. It is about seeing when kindness turns into a weapon of control. Real kindness dies the moment it is given. It leaves no mark except lightness. Toxic kindness survives in memory. It lingers, it festers, it grows into an obligation you never agreed to carry. And because it is dressed as goodness, you rarely question it. Instead, you turn against yourself, blaming your discomfort on ingratitude, telling yourself that you are the problem for feeling chained. That is the hidden nature. It is not your enemy's sword you must fear, but the soft touch that bends your spirit. It does not cut your flesh, it reshapes your conscience. It does not take your freedom with force. It convinces you to give it away, smiling as you place it in their hands. The danger is subtle, invisible, and therefore more corrosive than any open act of cruelty. If you fail to see it, the result is the same as any prison. You wake up one day to realize your choices are not truly yours, your voice has been muted, and your will has been compromised. The longer you ignore it, the heavier the chain becomes. Recognizing it is not cruelty toward others, it is clarity toward yourself. And without that clarity, you are not free. Pulated generosity. To understand toxic kindness fully, you must step back and view it through the eyes of the Stoics, who saw human nature with a clarity that cut through illusions. They knew that gifts and generosity could be used as tools of virtue, but also as instruments of enslavement. For Marcus Aurelius, freedom of the mind was the highest good. He warned himself daily not to let others' favors, praises, or judgments chain his reason. What looks like a harmless gesture can often be the most effective form of control, because it enters not through conflict, but through agreement. You say yes to what feels good, and in that yes, you hand over pieces of your sovereignty. Seneca, in his writings on generosity, was blunt. A true gift dies the moment it is given. If it lingers, if it demands memory, if it carries with it the shadow of expectation, then it ceases to be a gift and becomes a debt. He compared such acts to traps laid with bait. The animal takes the food not realizing it carries with it the closing of a door. So it is with manipulated kindness. You take the offering and the cage begins to close. What seemed like nourishment becomes confinement. Epictetus, the freed slave turned philosopher, knew the weight of hidden chains better than most. He taught that the moment you let another dictate your choices, you have surrendered what was never theirs to own, your will. Toxic kindness works precisely by disguising that surrender as virtue. You are praised for being loyal, for being grateful, for being considerate. Yet, in truth, you are no longer acting from reason, but from fear of disappointing the hand that gave. To the Stoics, this was the deepest corruption. Not that someone sought to control you, but that you allowed yourself to be guided away from the path of reason by what only appeared to be good. Think of the political leader who showers citizens with gifts, only to use that generosity as leverage to silence dissent. Or the friend who constantly rescues you, not to strengthen you, but to keep you dependent on their presence. Or even the partner whose every act of care carries the hidden reminder that you owe them obedience. In each case, generosity is used not to free, but to bind. The Stoics would say this is not kindness at all, but a more insidious form of tyranny. For tyranny does not always wear armor. Sometimes it wears a smile. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations that he was not born to be kept, but to act. The Stoic path is not about rejecting kindness, but about distinguishing the pure from the poisoned. A pure gift leaves you standing taller, more capable, more free. A poisoned one leaves you bent, cautious, afraid to step in a direction that might displease. Seneca's warning echoes here. The greatest chains are not forged from iron, but from favors that demand your soul in return. When you see kindness through this lens, you begin to notice how often the word generosity is misused. True generosity empowers the receiver. False generosity weakens them. True kindness dissolves the moment it is given. Toxic kindness lives on, whispering in your ear, demanding, pressing, binding. To live as the Stoics urged is to be vigilant against such illusions, to train the mind to see not the surface but the consequence. What is the result of this act? Am I freer or am I bound? Am I acting from reason or from obligation disguised as gratitude? These are the questions Marcus would have asked himself, and they remain just as vital today. The danger of manipulated generosity is not in the gift itself, but in what it does to the spirit if left unexamined. The Stoics remind us that freedom must be protected not only from visible enemies but also from invisible favors. And so the task is clear: do not reject kindness, but sharpen your perception. Learn to see which gifts come as sunlit blessings and which arrive as hooks hidden in honey. The first will fortify your life, the second will drain it until you forget you ever had the strength to resist. The cycle of emotional debt. Toxic kindness does not enslave you all at once. It follows a quiet sequence, a cycle that repeats until you no longer notice how deeply it has altered the way you think, feel, and act. At first, it feels like a blessing. You are caught in the sweetness of the gesture, comforted by the attention, grateful for the hand that reached out when you thought you were alone. That first stage is the hook. It is soft, almost invisible, and it plants the idea that this person is not like the others, that they see you, that they care for you more than most. And yet within that very sweetness is the seed of captivity. The moment you accept the gift without examining its weight, you step into a pattern that will quietly harden around you. The second stage is expectation, not spoken, not announced, but felt. The one who offered the gift need not say a word. Their silence is enough. Their glance, their carefully measured disappointment when you act outside their unspoken wishes. Suddenly, you feel a subtle pressure. You begin to anticipate what they want before they ask. You replay their actions in your mind and measure your own choices against them. The gift you received weeks ago is now a shadow trailing you. You believe you must prove worthy of it, repay it, balance some invisible scale. Gratitude, once a natural response, becomes a form of guilt, and guilt becomes the leash around your neck. The third stage is the chain. It is here that the illusion of kindness reveals its full grip. What began as a moment of generosity has now become a system of control. You feel unable to say no, unable to step away, unable to breathe without considering how they will react. It is not that they openly demand obedience. That would be easy to resist. Instead, they let you police yourself, binding yourself with the memory of their kindness, and in this way, you become the jailer of your own freedom. The chain is not forged by their words, but by your fear of being ungrateful. That fear becomes the weight you carry everywhere, a constant reminder that your life is no longer entirely your own. The cycle continues because you mistake the chain for loyalty. Each time they repeat the pattern, another gift, another silence, another expectation, you tell yourself this is the price of connection, the price of being cared for. You forget that real connection does not demand submission, and real kindness never attaches itself like a parasite to your will. By the time you realize what has happened, you may already have spent years bending under the invisible yoke of someone else's generosity. The Stoics spoke of this danger with precision. Seneca taught that the worst kind of gift is the one that lingers, forcing the receiver into servitude. Marcus Aurelius warned himself to act always from reason, never from guilt or fear of others' opinions. Epictetus declared that freedom is lost the moment your actions are driven by anything outside the rule of your own mind. This cycle of emotional debt is the exact trap they sought to expose. It takes what is most sacred, your autonomy, and disguises its theft beneath the veil of care. The tragedy is that you may never confront it directly. You tell yourself you are grateful, that you are being noble by repaying the kindness. But nobility built on chains is not nobility at all. It is submission, and each repetition of the cycle makes the chain harder to break. Because the debt grows, the guilt deepens, and the habit of bending becomes second nature. By the end, you may not even remember what it felt like to act freely, without calculating how it would affect the one who gave you so much. To break free, you must first recognize the pattern. You must see that the sweetness of the hook, the silence of expectation, and the weight of the chain are not three separate events, but one continuous design. The gift was never meant to end with your gratitude. It was meant to begin a cycle of control. And until you break that cycle, you will remain trapped in a prison you did not even realize was being built around you. The cost of staying blind. There is a price for failing to recognize toxic kindness, and it is not small. The first thing it steals from you is clarity. You begin to doubt your own instincts, questioning whether your discomfort is real or just ingratitude. That self-doubt fogs the mind, making it harder to trust your judgment. Each time you silence your inner voice, you weaken the very compass that guides your freedom. Slowly, almost without notice, you stop asking, "What do I truly want?" and begin asking instead, "What would please them?" That shift, subtle at first, becomes the root of captivity. The second cost is autonomy. Life no longer feels like something you shape with your own hands. Your choices are weighed against invisible debts, and your actions are bent toward avoiding disappointment. You think you are making decisions, but in truth you are reacting to chains. This is why toxic kindness is more dangerous than open hostility. An enemy can be resisted. But when you surrender willingly, when you hand over the reins of your will, you lose the very ground upon which resistance could stand. The third cost is exhaustion. Living under this weight drains you in ways no physical labor ever could. Every smile carries hidden pressure, every gesture of help a silent demand. You begin to carry two burdens at once, your own life and the constant calculation of how to repay what was given to you. This double load wears down your spirit until you feel heavy, even in moments that should feel free. And because the chains are invisible, you blame yourself for the fatigue, believing that you are weak, when in reality you are carrying a weight that was never yours to bear. The fourth cost is identity. Over time you may begin to reshape yourself, not according to reason or inner clarity, but according to the expectations imposed by another's generosity. You become quieter when you would have spoken, more passive when you would have acted, more pliable when you would have stood firm. The mask of gratitude becomes your face until you forget who you were before the cycle began. To the Stoics, this was the ultimate tragedy, to let another distort the soul, which is the one thing that should remain sovereign. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that he was not born to live as a shadow of another's will, but to act from his own nature. Seneca warned that the greatest chains are not made of iron, but of obligation, because obligation can corrupt even the strongest spirit if left unchecked. Epictetus declared that a person who has lost mastery over themselves is no different from a slave, regardless of how noble the circumstances appear. To stay blind to toxic kindness is to accept slavery with open hands, to wear chains willingly, and to call them love. The cost also extends outward. When you live bound in this way, you cannot give true kindness to others because your actions are always entangled in guilt and calculation. You cannot offer generosity freely when your own soul is weighed down by debts. You begin to perpetuate the very cycle that trapped you, passing on poisoned gifts that bind rather than liberate. In this way, blindness does not only harm you, it infects those around you. The longer you remain blind, the harder it is to escape. Years can pass before you realize how much of your life was shaped not by your own clarity, but by the hidden grip of another's kindness. And when that realization comes, it cuts deeply. You see not just the time lost, but the strength you surrendered, the choices you never made, the paths you never walked. That is the true cost of blindness. Not just bondage, but the erosion of the life that could have been lived in freedom. This is why awakening is urgent. To delay is to give away more of yourself each day until you are nothing but a reflection of another's design. And once that erosion reaches its end, there is little left to reclaim. Toxic kindness takes not by force, but by consent, disguised as gratitude. And if you do not learn to see, you will give away your soul, piece by piece, until nothing remains that you can truly call your own. Breaking the illusion of care. The most dangerous part of toxic kindness is not the act itself, but the illusion it creates. You tell yourself you are loved, supported, protected. You convince yourself that what you are receiving is care, yet real care liberates while this illusion suffocates. It wraps itself around you like a soft blanket, warm enough to silence your doubts, heavy enough to keep you still. To break free, you must first pierce the illusion and see clearly what lies beneath. That clarity is painful, but it is the beginning of freedom. True kindness is like the sun. It gives without calculation, without hesitation, without expectation. It shines and then disappears, never demanding thanks for its light. You walk away from it lighter, not heavier. Toxic kindness is different. It is like a hook covered in honey, sweet on the surface, yet sharp and cutting beneath. You accept it because it feels good, but when you try to walk away, the hook drags against your flesh, reminding you that what you thought was a gift was in fact a claim. Recognizing this difference is not cynicism, it is wisdom. You must learn to listen to the weight of your own emotions. When someone's kindness leaves you anxious, guilty, or trapped, it is no longer kindness. When you find yourself silencing your desires for fear of seeming ungrateful, you are no longer free. The illusion of care is powerful precisely because it disguises control as compassion, and when compassion is counterfeit, it is more corrosive than cruelty. Cruelty reveals itself, but false care confuses you until you no longer trust your own instincts. The Stoics warned of this deception. Marcus Aurelius urged himself to act from reason alone, not from the pull of emotions or the debts imposed by others. Seneca declared that the truest gift dies instantly, leaving no shadow of obligation. Epictetus reminded his students that their only true possessions were their judgments and choices. If another's care corrupts those possessions, it is not care at all, it is theft. Seeing through the illusion is an act of strength, not harshness. It means choosing clarity over comfort, truth over pleasing appearances. Breaking this illusion requires courage. It is not easy to admit that the person you believed was lifting you may in fact be weighing you down. It is not easy to risk their displeasure, their disappointment, or even their rejection by refusing the hidden terms of their kindness. Yet this is the price of reclaiming yourself. The fear you feel is the exact measure of the chain you must break. If it were true care, you would not feel fear in setting boundaries. You would feel freedom. So test the kindness around you. Ask, does this make me stronger or weaker, freer or more entangled, at peace or in debt? Do I feel gratitude or do I feel guilt? These questions are not signs of paranoia. They are the tools of clarity. They strip away illusion and reveal the substance beneath. If the substance is pure, gratitude will deepen without pressure. If the substance is poisoned, the weight will reveal itself quickly. When you see clearly, you are no longer at the mercy of appearances. The mask of care falls away, and you can act with reason instead of reaction. That is the Stoic path, not to reject kindness, but to discern its nature. For what is not genuine should never have authority over your mind. And when you reclaim that authority, you reclaim the freedom that toxic kindness sought to steal. The Stoic solution: boundaries as freedom. The answer to toxic kindness is not to close yourself off from people, nor to harden your heart against all forms of generosity. The solution is to build boundaries so clear and firm that no disguised chain can pass through them. Boundaries are not walls of cruelty, they are the architecture of freedom. Without them, you are not protecting anyone, you are abandoning yourself. The Stoics understood this truth. They believed that the soul must remain sovereign, and sovereignty requires the courage to say no when reason demands it. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that he was born not for comfort but for action, not to be carried by others, but to stand as a man directed by reason. A gift that distorts reason is not a blessing, it is corruption. Epictetus was even sharper. He told his students that what is not within their control is not their debt. If another's approval or disappointment can dictate your path, you have surrendered control of your life. Boundaries, then, are the shield that keeps what is outside of you from enslaving what is within. Think of boundaries not as rejection, but as alignment. When you set a clear line, you are not pushing someone away. You are declaring the conditions under which your freedom remains intact. Real kindness respects those lines. It does not resist them. It does not test them. It does not guilt you for drawing them. Toxic kindness recoils at them because it loses its power when the lines are made visible. That reaction itself is your proof. If kindness turns to manipulation the moment you assert yourself, it was never kindness at all. The practice of boundaries demands clarity of speech and firmness of heart. It means refusing to explain endlessly why you cannot fulfill an expectation. It means allowing others to feel disappointment without rushing to rescue them from it. It means remembering that another's feelings, however intense, are not your debt to pay. This is not cruelty. It is respect for the natural order. Each person is responsible for their own soul. If you take on that responsibility for them, you abandon your own. Seneca taught that the noblest gifts are the ones that leave both giver and receiver free. When you accept such a gift, gratitude is pure, not weighed down by fear. But when a gift binds you, the honorable choice is to cut the rope, not to endure it in silence. Boundaries are the knife that severs false obligations. They restore balance by reminding both parties that generosity without freedom is nothing more than control in disguise. You may fear that setting boundaries will make you seem cold or ungrateful, but this fear is exactly what toxic kindness feeds on. It keeps you trapped in a loop of compliance, afraid of being judged for reclaiming your freedom. Yet the Stoics would argue that the greater injustice is not disappointing another, but betraying yourself. Better to risk their disapproval than to live enslaved to their disguised expectations. When you begin to live with these boundaries, something powerful happens. You discover that real relationships are not harmed by them, they are strengthened. People who truly care for you respect the lines you draw. They do not punish you for them. They honor them because they know that your freedom makes your gratitude real. Those who recoil, those who rage, those who guilt you into obedience, reveal themselves as manipulators, not friends. Boundaries, then, are not only protection, they are revelation. They show you who is genuine and who is not. This is the Stoic solution: to walk in the world with a heart open to true kindness, but with a mind sharp enough to reject poisoned generosity. To live this way is to remain free, untangled, uncorrupted. Boundaries are not about keeping people out. They are about keeping yourself whole. And when you are whole, no hidden chain can ever enslave you again. Call to inner authority. You were not born to live under invisible chains. You were not placed in this world to be guided by the disguised intentions of others, smiling as they pull you into their orbit. You were born with reason, with the ability to choose, with the strength to stand firm in your own soul. Toxic kindness seeks to erode that strength by cloaking control in the shape of care. But once you see through the illusion, the power to reclaim yourself returns to your hands. No chain, however subtle, can bind a mind that has chosen clarity. This is the moment to decide whether you will continue carrying debts that were never yours, or whether you will step into the authority that belongs only to you. Authority over your thoughts, authority over your choices, authority over the direction of your life. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that the only true kingdom to rule is the kingdom within. No flattery, no gift, no false care can govern that realm unless you grant it permission. And why should you? What greater betrayal could there be than surrendering the throne of your own mind to someone else's disguised intentions? Freedom begins with recognition, but it does not end there. It requires action. It requires the courage to set boundaries, the wisdom to discern between true and false care, and the discipline to act according to reason, not guilt. Each time you say no to a poisoned gift, you are saying yes to your soul. Each time you resist manipulation disguised as kindness, you are strengthening the foundations of your freedom. And each time you choose clarity over illusion, you reclaim a piece of the life that is truly yours. This is not about becoming hardened or cynical. It is about becoming sovereign. The one who rejects toxic kindness does not close himself off from the world. He opens himself to genuine connection. For only when you are free can you love without fear, give without calculation, and receive without debt. This is the path of the Stoics, to live unchained, guided not by the pressures of others, but by the light of your own reason. Do not wait until the weight of invisible chains has consumed years of your life. Do not wait until your soul feels so entangled that you no longer remember what freedom tastes like. Choose now. Choose to see. Choose to cut the rope of obligation and to walk forward unbound. Toxic kindness will always exist, but it has no power over the one who has learned to recognize its mask. You are the guardian of your own freedom. Protect it as you would protect your very breath. Recognize when care becomes poison. Recognize when gifts carry hidden chains, and stand firm, knowing that no disguise of kindness can conquer a soul that refuses to kneel. Choose clarity, choose strength, choose freedom, before it is too late. If this message struck you, share your thoughts below. Subscribe for more insights drawn from the timeless wisdom of the Stoics, and continue walking with me on this path of clarity and strength.